Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. And this time I'm doing a little something different. I'm doing a whole series in one video. I'm gonna try to not keep the video super long because this series I think can be very well like addressed in one video. Not that the films are bad because I at least enjoy to an extent all of them. But for this, I thought it would be an interesting thing to do kind of a rapid fire review thing. For the Death Wish series. And starting with Death Wish 1 from 1974, directed by Michael Winner, starring Charles Bronson, Hope Lang, Vincent Gardenia. Um, Charles Bronson plays Paul Kersey. After his wife is murdered by street punks, a pacifist New York City architect becomes a one-man vigilante squad prowling the streets for would-be muggers after dark. And I like the first Death Wish. I do. Also, this is going to be spoilers because I have to talk about the endings of these films as I have ranging thoughts on them. But this film, most of my issues come down to how the film, like, like, most of my issues have to do with some acting and the ending. But for the most part, I think the first Death Wish is a very interesting look at vigilantism and especially crime at that time in New York, because that was around the time New York City was like not a good place to live. And it still to an extent is. And again, Charles Bronson, an actor that I have gained a lot of respect for. If you notice me tearing up, I have some allergies. Sorry about that. Um, Charles Bronson is an actor again I have a lot of respect for. Like it turns out that back in the day when his wife, Jill Ireland, was sick, she had breast cancer, she ended up dying in 1990. He would turn down a lot of movie offers. Now what films he was offered, I'm not sure. I didn't really find that out. But excuse me. But I do find that very sweet. That's something a true man would do. Like the perfect husband would be like, you know what, I'm not going to work on this right now. I'm taking care of you. And another thing I can give him is he's kind of in the way that Clint Eastwood had Sandra Locke, his wife, in a lot of his films. Same thing for Charles Bronson with Jill Ireland. And while I wouldn't call Jill Ireland a great actress in most things, she does show up in Death Wish 2, and I didn't mind her. I thought she was fine. But I'll get to that. But in Death Wish 1, you've got this kind of like commentary on, is vigilantism good? Is it bad? And I think that is a very interesting topic to address in a film like this. There have been other films that have addressed this type of topic, like I think John Doe Vigilante, that Australian film that I quite like. Even though the film is more leaning to one side or the other, which that's going to be with any film, excuse me, you're going to get some sort of bias. So I don't think that's inherently a flaw of Death Wish or the remake or any of them. Because one thing I hear a lot is like Death Wish is a 100% conservative film, or it's like very conservative leaning, which would imply that the film is explicit in saying that Paul Kersey is a good guy. And I'm talking about this film by itself because that's all that was that around then. You're comparing the way this film treats it, which is a very bipartisan view to it, where I mean, the main character is kind of just your normal, like, liberal New York architect. And then he, like, slowly ends up going into this other side, which they don't even say that he's supposed to, like, nothing ever implies that that he's turned like Republican rather than Democrat because of these events. It's more so because like back before this was like a one side or the other issue. It seems like gun control as a topic was kind of more of a necessity or a want situation where people are like, okay, it's not a necessity to own a gun in your house for protection, as you can use something like a baseball bat. But to be honest, if we're looking at this rationally, a baseball bat can't really do much against somebody with a gun. And the whole argument of guns kill people, no people kill people. And now it's turned into more of a partisan issue where you have to, I mean, automatically, if you own a gun for self defense or home defense, you're seen as outwardly conservative or Republican. And if you say, oh, you don't want to own one because you're twitchy around guns, then you're automatically labeled as one thing. I don't think this film is making an argument either way, just as I don't think the remake is making an argument on it. But I do I do think this film does a very good job of trying to dissect Paul Kersey as a character. Because the first Death Wish, calling it an action movie or calling it a crime film, I think would be a little misleading. Because this film isn't very actiony. Again, this is still kind of early in the realm of what we would consider nowadays action films, which was kind of kickstarted by films like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon. Yes, he does kill people in this. He does kill some gangbangers and shit, but it's not really the main point of the film. The point of the film is how his daughter's rape and his wife's killing have affected him as a character. And there's a lot of scenes that do this very well. One scene that sticks out to me quite a bit is there's a bit where Paul Kersey's son-in-law comes to visit to talk about how things are going. And Paul Kersey's got this music really loud. He's like cooking and he's trying to make himself smile. And the son-in-law is talking about how can you be happy with what's going on? And then Paul Kersey gets angry and says, "What, you want me to just sit around and mope? I'm trying to," he's trying to convince himself to be happy. And this film gets the stages of grief pretty well. And again, it it it, it also makes me feel like I'm a little bit, wrong for having the opinion I do on the ending because watching it again, it's not exactly what I remembered. And right now I'm going to talk about the ending. The ending is Paul Kersey ends up chasing down one guy, like one mugger, on the night where there's cops posted outside of his house, and there's this detective, um, Frank Ochoa, played by Vincent Gardenia, who I thought was really good in the film. Actually, a very interesting character. Um, he has been kind of on Paul's side about this. He's like, well, they're giving me less to do, so maybe it's a good thing that he's a vigilante. And the cops are basically chasing Kersey until he gets to this. I get this, guess this mill, and Paul Kersey tells the crook, "Show your hand or fill your hand." I think it's supposed to be a reference to True Grit, where um John Wayne tells Robert Duvall's character, "Fill your hand, you son of a bitch," uh, meaning draw your gun. Paul Kersey ends up fainting due to blood loss, and you see Frank Ochoa talking to one of the cops, and nobody's seen the evidence that has shown up yet. And he tells that cop, who's a newbie, I think, to give him the evidence, don't enter it into lockup, because he's basically covering up that Charles Bronson was the vigilante. And then he goes to, uh, excuse me, Freaking Paul Kersey. Oh my God. Sorry. He goes to Paul Kersey in the hospital. He says, I will throw this gun in the river if you use your connections within your company to go to another town. And he does that. And then the film ends with him seeing a bunch of guys trying to steal a woman's luggage, a bunch of crooks that bump into a woman. He points a finger gun at them and then goes, and yeah. So watching the ending again, I don't hate it. I'm fine with it. It works. But I can also say that it's a bit disappointing that, again, while I can admit this isn't an anti-vigilante film, nor is it a pro-vigilante film, really, the film not attempting to bring back the crooks from the beginning, I think was a little bit of a mistake. Because I think it could have been, you could have had a more interesting ending where he, ends up catching them and finding out what they did, maybe takes them to court. You don't have to have him kill them, I don't think, but at least like some type of redemption or some type of, consequence for what has happened. But yeah, even then, the film has a really good score, um, by Herbie Hancock. The Herbie Hancock score is great. Again, Charles Bronson gives a great performance in the film. Michael Winner, great director, does a great job making the film look good. And again, it's a well-paced film. You've got a couple uh cam well, not cameos, but starting roles for a lot of actors, like you have a young role from, damn, I can't remember his name. Jeff Goldblum as one of the freaks that kills and rapes and all that. Uh, I think there's also, well, one of the muggers at one point is Lawrence Hilton Jacob, uh, who's been in a lot of films. I think Denzel Washington shows up at one point, but I can't confirm that. But yeah, I, I on Letterboxd I gave Death Wish 1 an 8 out of 10. And now on to Death Wish 2, also directed by Michael Winner from 1982, starring Charles Bronson, Jill Ireland, Vincent Gardenia. And in this film, Paul Kersey is again a vigilante trying to find five punks who murdered his housekeeper and daughter in Los Angeles. So, Death Wish 2, this might be my least favorite in the series. And my main point for that would be that it's not it doesn't really improve on a lot of things that I had with the first film. Mostly that, well, one thing I forgot to mention, the muggers aren't that interesting, and I've always thought the acting with the muggers was a bit over the top. Here, that kind of continues, especially with, even though I love this man as an actor, Lawrence Fishburne's character is fucking annoying, uh, and not threatening, really. So it's a bit of a downer. But yeah, y- so again, the main reasons I'm not super like, this could have been almost as good as this as the first, but and there's a lot of people who think this is an improvement. That's fine. One of my main issues with this film is you already had the rape scene in the first film. I think after that you don't need that again because again at that point in 74 that was kind of a thing. Like films trying to be a bit edgier, show something that people usually haven't seen before. And you don't need that in this film. This film is 8 years later in 1982 when that wasn't really a big thing anymore. Like exploitation films in general were mostly in the 70s, like drive-in theaters, which did still exist in the 80s, and this definitely played in some drive-in theaters. But that era where there's a lot of rape in those like post-apocalyptic films or exploitation films like Miss 45 or I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left. Again, a very 70s dominated era. So it just feels mostly tacky here. The scenes feel so overlong that it does get a bit, again, exploitative. And hearing some things about Michael Winner from people, especially in Death Wish 3 regarding that rape scene, I think it might have been a thing with Michael Winner. I'm not sure. I can't say 100% one way or the other, but it was something that stuck out in a bad way to me. Um, the film also just looking. Oh yeah, the relationship in this. So I said before that I think it's a good idea to have Charles Bronson and Jill Ireland in the same film as a couple. And here, this is again 8 years after the first film. I guess it takes place 8 years after that as well. They never really make it clear, but he's got a girlfriend. He wants to ask her to marry him, and well, they're engaged. They get engaged, but um, while there are quite a few scenes that I think are well done, and I think that Charles Bronson has quite good chemistry with Jill Ireland, mostly because they were married, I don't think they do enough with this. Like, they never really put her in danger. I feel like it would. I don't think you'd have to kill her. I don't think you'd have to kill that character, the female lead again. But at least having her in danger would have given her more of a purpose because the ending of this film, I definitely don't like the ending of this film as much as the first. Even if, again, spoilers, even if he gets revenge and kills one of the guys, like he does get all of the creeps that raped and killed, well, caused the accidental death of his daughter. eh, The ending of him racing to his house to try to catch Jill Ireland, and she finds out that he faked an ID in order to get into the hospital to kill the last guy after he already told her that he wasn't the vigilante. The ending ends up feeling kind of tacked on in a way, or it just kind of feels like it ends because I feel like that moment should have come before the ending, as like he's lost everything already in pursuing vigilantism. It would still be a part of the whole like, will he, won't he, or it's not good or bad. They're just examining this man going through this. It would have enhanced that if this moment came, say, before the third act. You have her discover it. He goes there, and she has a letter written talking about how she can't deal with this. She still loves him, but she can't involve herself in that. That would have been a lot more interesting than making her seem like a heartless bitch. Realizing that these people did kill his daughter and he knows who they are. And then she just kind of leaves, even though this whole film, they've been giving us all of this evidence that she cares for him. And yeah, it just doesn't feel right. Like, if it was re-edited and it was put before the very ending, I think this would have been a much better. It could have worked a lot better emotionally because by the end, we've just had, oh, he got the last guy, and the guy at the hospital is giving him a couple minute head start. And I mean, he's not really, but he you can tell the that he sympathizes with this man. And then switch it, like cutting to her being heartless like that. I, it just doesn't sit right with me. I don't think it's a good ending. Um, the pacing also can be a bit wonky. You'd think like y- you'd have more interesting like I mean, yes, there's more like memorable one-liners and stuff, and there's like one all right action scene. Um, but aside from that, it is kind of just going through the motions of the first film again. But yeah, I don't hate this film. It still has some fun moments. The score by Jimmy Page of the Eagles, great. Um, again, it feels like a natural progression for Kersey. You've got this man who went to the streets in the first film because of his wife's death, and now because of his daughter's death, he's like, I don't have anything else to lose, so he goes after them personally. I think all five of the main Death Wish films have a good progression to them in terms of his character and how he changes as a person throughout them all, which I will address by the time I get to the fifth film before I get to the remake. But yeah, I don't mind Death Wish 2. It's just not one that I would inherently just outright watch. But yeah. And now on to Death Wish 3, also directed by Michael Winner from 1985, starring Charles Bronson, Deborah Raffin, Ed Lauter, Martin Balsam. Oh yeah, in Death Wish. No wait, never mind. I already got it. But yeah, in Death Wish 3, architect vigilante Paul Kersey arrives back in New York and is forcibly recruited by a crooked police chief to fight street crime caused by a large gang terrorizing the neighborhoods. And Death Wish 3 may just be my favorite of the series because it gets down the whole vigilante action thing, and you kind of have an excuse to just enjoy it because Kersey is being forced to do it by this police chief. And again, a natural progression to the character, taking to the streets after his wife's death, after his daughter's death, he's just full on vigilante. And now he went to New York to find his friend again, which we've never seen before. It is kind of a lazy, like, tacked on thing of like, oh, that this is just the reason we're doing this is we're just throwing in a guy at the very beginning to die. But still, it's fine. And then yeah, it's just Death Wish 3. I forgot to mention this. Death Wish 2, 3, and 4 are produced by Canon Films, who've done a lot of very well loved action films with people like Charles Bronson, Chuck Norris, um, Dolph Lundgren did Masters of the Universe through them. Um, Jean-Claude Van Damme got his start with Kickboxer and Bloodsport. Um, oh yeah, Delta Force, Invasion USA with Chuck Norris. Very well liked films. And Charles Bronson did quite a few for them. I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but I think Murphy's Law was one of them. That's one people seem to like. But yeah, one of Canon Film's biggest strengths is the action. The action in this film is the best of the entire series, especially in terms of scale, in terms of that they're just going all out. But this film does still have build up to that. You have kind of your normal Death Wish action where he just straight up shoots some creep on the street because he's either trying to take his car or he's there um like stealing something. Like, and yes, this film is a bit more outwardly pro vigilante, I guess. That doesn't really bother me personally because again, it's a film, it's not real. And yeah, this film is a lot of fun. It's this is the like all out action spectacular of the series, even though the fourth one has some solid action, but not nearly to the scale of this. Where in Death Wish 3, you have like buildings getting fucking exploded, entire like street sides lit on fire. Yes, it takes place in a small town, part of it, of whatever town, which I forgot where it was, but it was a town that was getting like kind of remodeled or something like that. So they had a bunch of abandoned buildings, which amazing. You've got a perfect setting for, again, New York, kind of the Warriors thing going on where just crime is taken over to the extent where the cops haven't even tried to go there. Kind of like what's happening in New York with the whole defunding the police thing. And and just Death Wish 3 is a lot of fun to watch. It's very very well paced. It's only 90 minutes, perfect length. Michael Winner again, great direction from him. Score again by Jimmy Page keeps that really awesome it's the bring, 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 like so fucking badass. And it's kind of carried over from Death Wish 2 score. Death Wish 2 and 3 score, again, both done by Jimmy Page. Fantastic job here. Very energetic as well as during the action scenes. The like insane shit, very ahead of its time. Again, still holds up. Uh, your main villain, again, I wouldn't say the main villains are like that important, but he's fine. Like, I think they're supposed to be like a neo-Nazi group. They don't really focus on it too much. You got an early appearance from Alex Winter of Bill and Ted fame as one of the gang members. And yeah, there's not a ton of a plot to this. It's mostly just he's been recruited to clean up the streets of New York, and yeah, nobody else wants to do it. So I think it works. It's a very fun action film. Um, Again, it does address a lot of my problems. The rape scene in this is so short, like it could have just been taken out. So I'll give him that for also featuring Marina Sirtis of Star Trek fame. And she's talked about this. She's talked about that Michael Winter was a creep. Again, I have no way of knowing. I'm sorry that happened to her. Um, but yeah. Uh, Also, if I could say one thing is blatantly just not well done. The love interest in this, Deborah Raffin playing Catherine Davis, she's like a public defender and she, for some reason, wants to jump his bones, even though he's twice her age. She kind of just dies. She's kind of just in a car, she gets knocked out, and then one of the bad guys, like, sets her rolling down a hill so that pushes him even further. She's possibly the second weakest love interest in the entire series, probably behind the one from Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. But yeah, it's even with those things, I do still really like Death Wish 3. It's a lot of fun. And moving onwards to Death Wish 4, The Crackdown from 1987, directed by J. Lee Thompson, starring Charles Bronson, Kay Lenz, John P. Ryan, George Dickerson, and Sun Tek Oh. And Death Wish 4, The Crackdown, it's still fun. The ending is very anticlimactic. Uh, the villain could have been a bit better, and the action, there could have been a bit more action. I still enjoyed it. It has enough interesting things to it that keep me saying it's good. I don't know if I like it more or less than Death Wish 1, um, because like here's that's the thing. This can kind of be viewed as a Death Wish 3.5 because the setup to it is almost the same. Like in Death Wish 3, it's this police detective is getting him to do this. Here, it's this villain who turns out to be like a drug guy and he wants to eliminate the competition, which again, it's a very obvious plot and it's makes it kind of meh boring. But I do still I do think this is still a good time, even though the budget has obviously dropped. The budget for Death Wish 3 was $10 million, which at the time wasn't anything to sneeze at. It's about 40 million nowadays, so about like your normal action film, like your normal everyday action film nowadays. And this one's budget was 5 million, and that's also 2 years later. So they can't go as high like octane in the action as they want to. There's still some memorable parts. There's the bit with Charles Bronson gunning down these people in this fucking drug lab, which is fucking badass. There's him throwing in the dynamite and that explosion. There's later on uh the shootout in the arcade and skating rink that's pretty fun. The one in the parking garage. And when he pits both of the um drug kingpins together and the drug families together, that was fun. But in terms of story, again, it feels very derivative of Death Wish 3 specifically. And I I don't know, I kind of wish they didn't go that route in a way. But I do still think it's fun. It's still an enjoyable film. It has some big issues with the ending, though. The ending is, well, again, the villain. The villain doesn't have much to him. He's a twist villain. But the twist is so fucking obvious because he's like, yeah, I have information on you being a vigilante, even though 100% there's no fucking way that Charles Bronson being a vigilante wasn't outright shown to all of the cops in New York in Death Wish 3 as there were like news helicopters above everything. Like, there's no keeping that secret at this point, but fuck it. So the villain is kind of lame. Even though John P. Ryan, I do think he is doing a good job being trying to be menacing. He's been in other films as villains 100%. Trying to see. Oh yeah, he was in Runaway Train. Um Class of 1999, he was one of the robot villains. But yeah, like he can play a good villain. It's just he doesn't have enough character here. And the ending, oh my god, the ending of this. So you have Kay Lenz as Karen, who's again the reason this revenge starts is because her daughter and the one that Charles Bronson is taking care of now die dies of an overdose of cocaine because it turns out she's been getting cocaine from a dealer and she got some shit that was laced. And then the mom gets taken hostage at the very end of the film, even though it's been almost an hour. Like, it's been a good hour and some time since we've seen the character. And I think that really ruins any emotion that could have come from this ending. Also, as well, Paul Kersey is a fucking moron in this scene because he has this big gun that he's like got on a rampage in this film. and at the end, like going off against the guys at that rink trying to end all this. And the villain keeps telling him, "Step 1 foot closer to me, and I shoot her." And he has an Uzi up to her head, and she's telling him, "Don't do what he says, or do what he says." He keeps not doing it, and then once they get outside, she scratches the villain's face, tries to run away. She gets shot in the back with the Uzi and is dead. Then Charles Bronson just shoots him with the grenade launcher attachment on his gun, and he explodes, and then he ends up walking away. I don't like this ending. I think it's very tacked on to try to give some emotional weight, where again, I felt more emotional weight even in the botched ending of the second film, where y- that should have happened earlier and it would have actually had some weight. But here, it feels very tacked on, as if they forgot this character existed and they were like, "Oh wait, we can use her as a hostage now." Which again, it just feels very tacky. It feels even tackier than the third film, because you didn't even really need to get rid of the love interest for him to keep going after this guy, so it does feel kind of needless. So that's a big issue of mine. Otherwise, I do still enjoy it. It has its flaws for sure, but I do still enjoy the film. Would I watch it over and over? Probably not, only as part of a like marathon, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Now on to Death Wish 5, The Face of Death from 1994, directed by Alan A. Goldstein, starring Charles Bronson, Leslie Ann Down, Michael Parks, Saul Rubinek, and Miguel Sandoval. And I actually like this one a bit more than the fourth. Like, if I have to put them in order so far, I'd probably say Death Wish 2, Death Wish 4, Death Wish, Death Wish 5, and, well, nah. Death Wish 5, then Death Wish Original, then uh Death Wish 3. My bad. I'd probably put Death Wish Remake. Well, I'll say when I get to it. But Death Wish 5, Paul Kersey is back at working vigilante justice when his fiancee Olivia has her business threatened by mobsters. And yes, I really enjoy this film. I like I give it a 4 out of 5. I do enjoy this film, and even with its kind of like TV film look, and again, Charles Bronson is very obviously up there in age, he still does a great job playing this character. I don't think he's like slumming it in any of these. I don't think he's not in it for most of them. And I found this one interesting as it kind of returns to the pace of the original. So you've got your kind of your upward trajectory of his character. You've got a mild-mannered man forced to become a vigilante by a system that doesn't work for him, to he's back to his old ways because his daughter is killed, to he's forced into it uh by a police commissioner, and then he's forced into it by this villain who wants to basically just remove him from existence after this is all over. And now you've got this man who's doing one last thing because he just can't stay out of trouble, I guess. And yeah, this film is more on the level of pacing with the first film, because the inciting incident doesn't happen until about a third or a halfway through the film. Like about halfway through the film is when he starts taking his revenge, which I think is interesting in that it focuses on him more as a character, kind of in the way a TV movie would, where a TV revenge movie would usually have the first act be build up to the loss, and then the second act is contemplation, like should he do this, should he not, and then the third act would be the revenge, something like that. That's kind of what happens here. It's like first half is build up, second half is revenge, and the revenge I'd say is pretty well done. It's pretty creative. That's one big thing I can give to it. And also the acting. The acting for all of the Death Wish films, bar the first one, there's some, first and second one, I think some of the crooks have some issues with their acting, like they're a bit too over the top. With this film, pretty much all of the main acting performances are pretty damn good. You've Charles Bronson is really good here, even given that he's in his like early to mid 70s in this film. He gives a good performance. Leslie Ann Down plays Olivia Regent. She's good. Like she's a reliable character actress. She was in North and South. She was in The Great Train Robbery. Uh she was in the recent Reagan movie, Brannigan. Like she's a talented actress and she did a great job playing this character. Michael Parks as Tommy O'Shea, who's our villain, the best villain in the series. I mean, he plays this character very brutally. He, maybe a bit over the top, a bit chewing the scenery. I'm fine with that in a Death Wish film, and I think he does a great job. Um, and also, even though they don't have large parts, Miguel Sandoval and Raul Subanek, oh my God, Saul Rubinek, Jewish actor who's been in a ton of films. He's notably also in the Jesse Stone films. He's in a few of them. Um, but yeah, he has one scene in this where he acts pretty damn well. Um, where he finds out that his partner is a turncoat and he's working for the bad guys. Like that was a well acted scene. And again, Miguel Sandoval, I always knew him from Medium with Patricia Arquette. I think he does great here too. Like the acting here is very solid. It's a definite improvement from um the last films. But like yes, this film doesn't um it doesn't have like the action spectacle the third film has, the twist that the fourth has, or this whole conversation on vigilantism of the first and second. It has its own good things. It has um again a much better ending than the last film. The ending of this film is such a great ending that it doesn't sequel bait. It's more so like I'll be here if you need me. And the love interest, Leslie Ann Down, like this character might not have a ton of meat to her, but what she goes through, how it happens, how well she acts it, really sold it for me. And it made me actually believe in him trying to settle down with this woman and help take care of her daughter. And um oh yeah, the kills here, like you've got this one guy that ends up going through a like garment shredding machine, being turned into fucking chunks, brutal as hell. You've got this acid bath, um, that the villain ends up getting chucked into at the end with this great one-liner. Um, like you you need a bath, and then he starts fucking melting. It's amazing. There's this bit with the a like RC soccer ball, which I've never seen this thing in my fucking life. I tried looking it up. I couldn't find anything. Um, but yeah, that ends up exploding in somebody's face. He poisons a cannoli. There's one guy in this really awesome stunt. that like one of works for the bad guys. He tries to turncoat and he ends up getting uh run over by a car so hard he flies through the window of this coffee shop. It's a really well done stunts. Like throughout this entire series, the stunt crew, like the amounts of falling off buildings and getting burnt and getting blown up, like these stuntmen are fucking insane. And yeah, the film it definitely takes a bit of a slower pace. It does acknowledge this is something that I can definitely give credit to this film for doing that a lot of action franchises failed to do. They acknowledge the main character's age without making him like an idiot. In this film, there are multiple moments where he's like, just let the cops deal with it. Because I'm too old. I can't do this anymore. Even though the wife does know his past. Like he's like she's like just take him out and he's like that wouldn't make much sense. I'm like 70 I'm like 70 he was I think he was 71 or 73 when shooting this. Which you wouldn't really know it by how he acts in this. Like he's still running. Like in all these films, he's been doing a lot of his own stunts. There is one noticeable stunt actor in Death Wish 2 when Charles Bronson's head when Kersey's head gets pushed into some glass. Very obvious change of color and hair and face. But for most of these, he's doing his own running and he's doing a lot of stunts. In this 71-year-old picks up somebody and hangs them on a hook. Like this man picks him up. Like Charles Bronson's a real fucking badass. Like he can do this shit at 71. He can lift someone and not break his fucking back. Like that's amazing. But again, yes, this film does have a slower pace because it is acknowledging his age without making it seem like, oh, he's just an idiot curmudgeon now. And I like that they did it this way. I like that they didn't feel the need to trash him or like this was back when sequels still respected characters and didn't just kill them off for shock value, even though that did happen sometimes, but like this series has done before. But yeah, I like I'm fine with it. There is a lot less action for sure. There aren't any big like shootouts. Um but and again, the direction is kind of just there. Like Alan A. Goldstein, uh I don't think I've seen any of his films. He seems to direct a lot of really cheap like lower budget action films. He did 2001: A Space Travesty with Leslie Nielsen. I've heard horrible things about that. A couple Brian Bosworth films, which Brian Bosworth wasn't in anything worth a shit except like Stone Cold and uh One Tough Bastard. But yeah, I still enjoy Death Wish 5. I still think it's a worthy sequel. And on to Death Wish 2018. This is going to be a contentious one. Mostly because, well, from 2018, directed by Eli Roth, starring Bruce Willis, Vincent D'Onofrio, Dean Norris, Elizabeth Shue, Bo Knapp, and Kimberly Elise. Um, I really like the Death Wish remake. So much that I'd put it over the original. Now, before you kill me, before anybody kills me, this film is 20 times as good as it has any right to be. Because you have Bruce Willis, who around this time was in kind of a direct-to-video bind, like he was just being in a lot of really bad direct-to-video stuff. This was when he was still able to talk and like when he was still able to remember some things. And he gives his last good performance in this, in my opinion. And well, his last great performance because he gets this pain from his wife getting killed down he emotes very well in it. He has moments of anger where I feel that they're very warranted and he's acting them well. And overall, I do think the acting in this is pretty solid. You have, again, Vincent D'Onofrio not playing a villain for once, which is cool. Dean Norris is a detective. Elizabeth Shue plays the wife. She's pretty good. She's very natural. Camila Marone as Jordan Kersey, the daughter. I found her pretty fun. Kimberly Elise, Detective Jackson, who's Detective Rain's partner. She's fine. Bo Knapp as Knox is kind of an issue I have with the film. He's not a very memorable villain. He's kind of just slimy white dude. And also this is Chicago. Um like yes, there's a lot of inaccuracies with how Chicago works, like the fact that pretty much every news station is talking about crime as if like that's a normal thing in Chicago to hear just people talking about ways we can prevent the crime because Chicago's been kind of a shithole for a long while and again, politicians don't seem to care. But even then, the villain Bo Knapp as Knox, he's there. He kind of he gets revealed in the third act to be the main guy that like got it all together. And again, if I could change a couple things, it would be that. Um, and some odd tonal shifts for sure. There are some scenes where it'll go from a character doing something brutal to like one of the detectives trying like Detective Rains trying out a like organic fruit bar because he's trying to be healthy, and that's kind of a character thing. That's kind of a like quirk of his character is that he loves eating, he's fat, and by the end he's like, you know what, I'm fine with being fat. So it's like, all right. It's not really needed, but it's kind of just there. If I said there was anything interesting about the detectives, really, that'd be lying. Their parts are mainly in there to make this kind of tie in to the first film. And in terms of that, in terms of this being a remake, I think it's pretty fucking faithful. Especially in like even though there are some changes, instead of Paul Kersey being an architect, he is a doctor, which I think makes it a bit more interesting as well, because you have him in like intimately linked to what he is doing, where a lot of the things a lot of information that he gathers is from working in the hospital. Um, in the Lost and Found clothes, he ends up picking out a bunch of hoodies whenever he goes out to do vigilante stuff to try to hide his identity. And um, there's a point where a crook, like a gang member, ends up in his hospital and ends up dropping a gun, which, yeah, convenient, but still, it works. And yeah, I think him like the opening of this film is a very good setup for what's to come because you have this cop in the very opening of the movie. The camera's kind of above New York and then it slowly or zooms into this cop trying to bring his partner to the hospital. The partner ends up dying and then he goes to try to save the guy who shot him. And I thought that was a very cool way to start the film because the first one didn't really have that cold open. It was mostly just establishing the relationship between Kersey and his wife. And again, I think it works. And getting to see a bit of their home life, a bit more of their home life before this all goes down, I think is a good idea. Like if anything could be added to any of the Death Wish films, it's more of a motivation in terms of setting up his loved ones that are about to die. Especially with like Death Wish 3 where they just kind of throw them in just to further the plot along. Here it feels a lot more natural. You get to see Paul Kersey be kind of mild mannered, like he'll still talk back to a guy being an asshole in public, but then you can see like the seeds of what's to come, like the seeds of him post wife's death and him becoming a vigilante. It makes a bit more sense seeing again a mild mannered everyday man, everyday working man, compared to later when he's doing that alongside still working his day job. And I think a lot of people were very like unfair to this film in a way with apparently it came out around the same time a school shooting happened, which you can't most filmmakers can't choose when their film comes out, like unless it's one of those like gimmick things where it's like a movie called April Fool's Day comes out on April 1st or a Christmas movie comes out on December the 25th, which it almost never does. It I think that's a very stupid argument to make because shootings are going to happen no matter what. Like gang violence happens no matter what, terrorism happens no matter what. It's like saying, "Oh, we're at war with China. We can't release any movies about China in America." It doesn't make sense as an argument, but I think this is a very good remake in the terms that it fixes a lot of problems I had with the first film. One being that the main character didn't go after the killers. He just kind of went after random crooks. And again, it was more of a drama piece, and that might not have been the intent, but it is seen as a revenge film or a vigilante film, and that would make more sense for the character to try to go after them because, again, this isn't based on real life. If it was based on a true story and it was just a guy that went on a revenge spree or vigilante spree, then I'd have less issue with it. But the fact that it is entertainment and it's listing itself as that, it feels a bit unfair. Here, I think a lot of the ways he gets revenge are pretty fun. Um, even though most involve just getting shot, but um, one I have to give a lot of credit to is the scene with the Jack. If you know, you know. Um, where he ends up like cutting this guy's sciatic nerve um on his leg, I think, and then pouring brake fluid in it, which is apparently one of the most painful experiences you can go through without any risk of cardiac arrest, which it looks painful. The effects here are fantastic. If that's one thing I can rely on Eli Roth as a director for is he knows the good effects guys. We saw that in Cabin Fever, Hostel, The Green Inferno. That's one thing you can rely on in his movies is great practical gore effects. And yes, there's some CGI blood, I think, with some of the gunshots for sure, but it doesn't really bother me in this. I'm having a lot of fun with it. The score by Ludwig Göransson, who also worked on, I think, the Black Panther films, very great 80s throwback score that isn't just it is synthesizers, but it's synthesizers kind of in the way that Death Wish 2 and 3 had them, which I think works well for this film, especially the first time he kills somebody or um, helps this woman. She's getting carjacked, and these two guys attack her. When he shoots them, there's like this synth, like it, and it really hits home this character going through this transformation from again mild mannered surgeon to vigilante. And yeah, the score really fits throughout the entire film. Again, very brutal deaths at times. There's the again the guy under the jack. The car ends up coming down because he pulls the jack out from under it, and his head gets fucking crushed, and you see it. It's a very gnarly fucking kill. I can't believe anybody who went into this film wanting like fun kills wouldn't enjoy this, but um oh yeah, the action again pretty violent, pretty well choreographed. Um the ending at the house I think was a lot of fun. This film never got so depressing that it became like a slog to sit through. I usually don't like it when films are so dramatic to the point where they become um unentertaining or not entertaining, excuse me. Because it reminds me of films like Schindler's List where I'm like, okay, 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 I get it. You're depressed? Here's how to be more depressed. Here's how to be more depressed. This film has like comedic let up or it has some um relief at times. Even if it's not outwardly comedic, it's like, oh, that's cute. But like plenty of callbacks to the first, the whole him yelling hey to the guys doing stuff. Again, something Charles Bronson's character did. Uh multiple well, the whole thing of multiple vigilantes and like his vigilantism inspiring other people to do it. Um but yeah, again, things I didn't care for. The main villain, again, he's there. Uh, and not much I can say about him. Odd tonal shifts at times, but I think this film is unfairly maligned. It doesn't deserve all the shit it gets. The ending is a lot more satisfying than uh the original, I think. And yeah, I'd put this under Death Wish 3, but above most of the rest of the series. I still like most of the series. I think all of them are good films, except the second one. I think it has a lot of issues. But yeah, hope y'all enjoyed my series review. Let me know if you want me to do more of these. Like, comment, subscribe, and movie reviewer next door.